The Suliban commander watched in shock as the human soldier ripped his captor's limb from limb with his bare hands, painting the walls a grisly red. He realized with dawning horror that humans were the galaxy's ultimate predator, and the Suliban had just caged a beast they couldn't control. Marek had thought his warship was impenetrable, but the human called Stephen Taylor had done the impossible, infiltrating the dreadnought on a solo Black Ops mission. Taylor moved like a ghost, unseen and unheard, as he skulked through the dimly lit corridors. Marek's blood chilled as he reviewed the security feeds. For months, Suliban raiding parties had been capturing humans from border colonies to use as slave labor and lab rats. Their scientists were hell-bent on uncovering the secret behind humanity's uncanny resilience and ability to endure hostile conditions that would kill most species. If the Suliban could harness that power, they would be unstoppable. But Taylor was about to throw a wrench in those plans. In a feat of technical wizardry, the soldier hacked the ship's systems and freed a pack of human prisoners. Among them was Dr. Ava Chen, a renowned xenobiologist. As alarms blared, Chen pulled Taylor aside and revealed the true aim of the Suliban's twisted experiments. They didn't just see humans as slaves. They saw them as the ultimate prey to hunt. As if on cue, a platoon of Suliban troops stormed the cell block. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but Taylor was prepared for war. Chen watched in awe as the hardened commando engaged the aliens in brutal hand-to-hand combat. He was a whirlwind of flying fists and bone-crushing kicks, snapping necks and cracking skulls with devastating precision. The Suliban fell by the dozen, no match for Taylor's elite skills and sheer ferocity. Marek observed the slaughter via video feed, eyes wide in disbelief. In all his years, he had never seen a display of martial prowess so terrifyingly perfect. He gave the order. The human male was to be captured alive at any cost. Marek would drag the secrets of his superiority out of him personally. As warning klaxons screamed and blast doors began to close, Taylor herded Chen and the other survivors towards the escape pods. The battered soldier held the line as they piled into the shuttles, not budging an inch even as the Suliban bore down on him in a frenzied tide. Chen met his determined gaze for a split second before the pod rocketed away. Taylor had just sacrificed himself to buy their freedom. Chen could only watch helplessly as a bloodied Taylor was finally subdued under a dogpile of enemies. Marek himself appeared, giving the order to drag the human to the ship's labs with a disgusted sneer. After all these centuries of being the galaxy's apex predators, the Suliban commander couldn't process the fact that lowly humans had managed to turn the tables and start hunting them instead. As the escape pod hurtled towards the nearest Alliance outpost, Chen swore to rally a rescue mission. Millions of human lives hung in the balance, and their greatest hero was now at the mercy of a sadistic enemy. She prayed they would not be too late. Marek paced around the operating table, his eyes fixated on the battered human strapped down before him. Stephen Taylor, the unstoppable soldier who had decimated his troops, now lay helpless and at his mercy. But Marek wasn't satisfied. He needed to know what made this man tick, what secret powered his incredible feats of strength and endurance. The tests began, each more brutal than the last. Stephen was subjected to electric shocks that would have fried a lesser being, dosed with chemicals that ate through flesh like acid. He was pushed to the brink of death, only to be dragged back and pushed again. Through it all, his vitals remained infuriatingly stable. "Impossible," Marek muttered, watching Stephen's brain scans light up like a star map. "Increase the neurotoxin dosage. I want to see him break." The scientists obeyed, pumping Stephen full of poisons that attacked his nervous system. The soldier convulsed on the table, his muscles seizing, but still he did not flatline. Enraged, Marek ordered the temperature controls adjusted, boiling and freezing Stephen in rapid succession. The human's skin blistered and cracked, his blood crystallizing in his veins, but somehow he clung to life. Hours turned to days, and still Stephen endured the hellish onslaught. Marek grew more manic with each failed attempt to make him crack. Finally, driven to a frenzy, The commander seized a laser scalpel and began slicing into Stephen himself, peeling back skin and muscle to the bone. What he found beneath the blood and sinew defied belief. Stephen's body was a tapestry of cybernetic circuitry, his organic structures interwoven with glinting metal and pulsing fiber optics. The technology was unlike anything the Suliban had ever seen, an unholy merger of man and machine on a cellular level. This was the source of humanity's unnatural power. The terrible realization struck Merrick like a bolt. The humans weren't just experimenting with augmentations, they had already perfected them. An entire race of super soldiers, hiding in plain sight, biding their time while the Suliban foolishly believed themselves the galaxy's apex predators. No more. If this technology proliferated, humanity would rule the stars unopposed. "Take him to the brig!" Merrick snapped, hands shaking as he sealed Stephen's flayed chest cavity. "Quadruple the guard. I must inform High Command immediately. The invasion of Earth cannot wait." As Stephen was dragged to the detention level and unceremoniously dumped on the filthy floor of a dank cell, Merrick hurried to the bridge, legs shaking. Everything had changed. The Suliban's entire worldview had crumbled to dust. All their vaunted supremacy rendered irrelevant in an instant. But in his haste, Merrick forgot one critical fact. Even broken and mutilated, Stephen Taylor was the most dangerous creature on the ship. Forgotten in his cell, Stephen cracked open swollen eyes, his enhanced mind still laser-focused despite the drugs and trauma. Gritting, shattered teeth, he groped blindly in the dark until his fingers closed around a jagged shard of metal. Ignoring his flayed skin shrieking in protest, Stephen set to work on his manacles, artificial muscles straining against the unyielding restraints with inhuman strength. He had to get free, had to warn the Alliance about the doom hurtling towards them. The Suliban would unleash hell on Earth unless he stopped them here and now. Failure was not an option. The whole human race was depending on him, though they didn't know it. With a grunt of effort, Stephen felt the first cuff starting to give. He redoubled his efforts, synthetic sinews whirring and straining. Just a little more, and he'd be mobile. Then the Suliban would learn what it meant to cage a monster. The manacles snapped with a resounding crack. Stephen wasted no time, his enhanced muscles propelling him to his feet despite the searing pain racking his body. He crept to the cell door, cybernetic eyes analyzing the lock mechanism. With precise movements, he manipulated the internal components until the door slid open with a soft hiss. The corridor stretched before him, bathed in dim red emergency lighting. Stephen moved silently, his augmented senses on high alert for any sign of Suliban patrols. He navigated the labyrinthine passages, relying on his perfect recall of the ship's layout from his earlier infiltration. A communications hub loomed ahead. Stephen slipped inside, fingers flying over alien consoles as he bypassed security protocols. The screen flickered to life, displaying a flurry of transmissions. His eyes widened as he decrypted Merrick's urgent message to Suliban High Command. "Damn it," Stephen muttered, absorbing the gravity of the situation. An invasion fleet, mobilizing to strike Earth. Billions of lives at stake. With renewed urgency, Stephen set to work. He accessed critical ship systems, planting cascading failure algorithms that would cripple the vessel. Alarms blared as life support, weapons, and propulsion began to falter. Chaos erupted throughout the ship. Stephen fought his way through panicked Suliban crew members, incapacitating them with brutal efficiency. His augmented strength allowed him to snap bones and crush windpipes with terrifying ease. The hangar bay doors loomed ahead. Stephen charged in, dodging plasma bolts as security forces converged on his position. He vaulted into the cockpit of a sleek Suliban fighter, his neural implants interfacing seamlessly with the alien tech. The engines roared to life as Stephen blasted out of the bay, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Space opened up before him, but his respite was short-lived. A squadron of Suliban fighters screamed out of the crippled warship, hot on his tail. Stephen pushed the stolen craft to its limits, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to pull off maneuvers that should have been impossible. An asteroid field loomed ahead. Stephen didn't hesitate, plunging into the deadly maze of tumbling rocks. The Suliban pilots pursued, but they were outmatched. One by one, they smashed into asteroids or collided with each other, unable to match Stephen's superhuman piloting. Victory was short-lived. Stephen's ship shuddered, alarms blaring as multiple systems failed. He fought for control as the craft plummeted towards a desolate moon. The impact was brutal, metal screaming as the ship plowed a deep furrow across the barren landscape. Stephen dragged himself from the smoking wreckage, his body battered but functional thanks to his cybernetic enhancements. He surveyed the lifeless expanse stretching to the horizon, knowing Earth's fate hung in the balance. In the distance, a glint of metal caught his eye, some kind of structure. With no other choice, Stephen began the grueling trek across the hostile terrain. Each step sent jolts of pain through his body, but he pushed on relentlessly. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, and he would not fail. Stephen stumbled into the abandoned mining outpost, his cybernetic enhancements straining to keep him upright after the grueling trek across the moon's barren surface. The airlock hissed shut behind him, and he slumped against the wall, gasping for breath in the stale, recycled air. As his eyes adjusted to the dim interior lighting, Stephen froze. This was no simple mining operation. Banks of sophisticated computer terminals lined the walls, their screens flickering to life at his presence. Medical equipment and strange bio-containment pods filled the cavernous space. "What the hell is this place?" Stephen muttered, limping towards the nearest console. His cybernetic interface connected seamlessly with the alien tech, and a flood of data poured into his mind. Project Apex, genetic manipulation, cybernetic enhancement. Stephen's eyes widened as he absorbed the shocking truth about his own augmented body. "I'm one of them, an Apex subject." Images flashed across the screen. Other test subjects demonstrating impossible abilities. A woman levitating objects with her mind. A man channeling raw energy from his palms. Stephen's own combat footage, moving at speeds that defied human limits. He dug deeper into the files, piecing together the fragments of a conspiracy that spanned galaxies. The Apex program wasn't just some black ops human initiative. It was the brainchild of an unknown alien race, using humanity as guinea pigs in some grand evolutionary experiment. Stephen's fists clenched as the full weight of his situation hit him. He was more than just a soldier now. He was the key to unlocking humanity's true potential, the only thing standing between Earth and annihilation at the hands of the Suliban. "I have to warn them," he growled, scanning the outpost for anything he could use to boost a distress signal. But first, Stephen's gaze fell on a sealed chamber humming with power. The latest Apex prototype enhancements, untested and potentially lethal. But he had no choice. To save humanity, he'd have to push himself beyond anything he'd ever attempted. He stepped into the chamber, steeling himself as robotic arms extended towards him. "Time to find out what I'm really capable of." The machinery whirred to life, and Stephen gritted his teeth against the searing pain. Whatever came next, he knew his life would never be the same. Stephen gritted his teeth as he stepped into the augmentation chamber. Robotic arms extended, latching onto his limbs and torso. A low hum filled the air as energy fields crackled to life around him. The first jolt hit like a sledgehammer. Stephen's back arched, muscles spasming as unfathomable power surged through his body. Every cell screamed in protest as the arcane technology rewrote his very DNA. Hours blurred together in a haze of agony. Stephen's bones cracked and reformed, denser and stronger. His muscles tore and regrew, fibers multiplying exponentially. His skin stretched taut over his rapidly changing frame. When the chamber finally powered down, Stephen stumbled out on shaky legs. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the raw strength coursing through him. But the physical changes paled in comparison to what was happening in his mind. Stephen's consciousness expanded, unfurling like a flower blooming in fast forward. The world around him took on new dimensions as his perception shifted. Energy fields invisible to normal human senses now shimmered in the air, pulsing with vibrant colors. He reached out, not with his hand but with his mind. The energy responded, coalescing into shifting patterns at his mental command. Stephen's eyes widened as understanding flooded his enhanced brain. "The hyperfield," he whispered, awestruck. "It's everywhere." Stephen turned his attention to a rusted console nearby. With a thought, he tapped into the hyperfield surrounding it. The metal groaned and shifted, decades of decay reversing in seconds. Circuitry rewove itself, screens flickering to life with holographic displays far beyond anything humanity had achieved. As Stephen marveled at his newfound abilities, a chill ran down his spine. His expanded consciousness brushed against something vast and ancient, a presence that defied comprehension. Images flashed through his mind, countless alien civilizations rising and falling across the cosmos, all guided by an unseen hand. The Suliban, once proud conquerors, reduced to mere puppets in a grand design. And at the center of it all, the hyperseed, an entity of pure thought and energy, existing beyond the boundaries of space and time. Stephen recoiled as he grasped its true nature and purpose. "No," he growled, fists clenching. "I won't let this happen." Stephen's mind raced, piecing together the horrifying truth. Humanity stood on the brink of forced transcendence, their very identities at risk of being absorbed into the hyperseed's vast consciousness. He had to act fast. Somewhere out there were other apex subjects like himself, their latent abilities waiting to be awakened. Stephen closed his eyes, reaching out with his newfound psionic senses. He would find them, unite them, and together they would stand against the coming storm. As Stephen prepared to leave the outpost, his commitment hardened. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he would not fail them. The Suliban, the hyperseed, they would learn the true power of human will. Stephen strode towards the airlock, the hyperfield bending around him like a second skin. His eyes glowed with otherworldly energy as he stepped out onto the barren moon's surface. The first battle in humanity's war for survival was about to begin. The barren lunar surface warped and shimmered as Stephen harnessed the hyperfield, his mind reaching out across vast stretches of space. Tendrils of psionic energy probed the cosmos, searching for the unique signatures of other apex subjects. A faint pulse caught his attention, beckoning from a distant star system. Stephen focused his will, bending space-time around him. In a flash of coruscating energy, he vanished from the moon's surface. He materialized inside a dimly lit corridor, the air thick with the scent of ozone and decaying circuitry. Stephen's enhanced senses picked up a heartbeat nearby, steady but guarded. He moved silently through the abandoned outpost, every nerve on high alert. A figure emerged from the shadows, eyes glowing with latent psionic power. "Who are you?" The woman's voice was edged with suspicion, her stance wary. "I'm Stephen Taylor," he replied, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm like you, Zara, an apex subject." Zara's eyes narrowed. "How do you know my name?" Stephen tapped his temple. "I can sense it just as I sensed you from across the galaxy. We're connected, all of us apex subjects. But there's so much more you need to know." He extended his hand, palm up. The air above it shimmered and coalesced into a swirling vortex of energy. Within it, images flickered to life, Earth, the Suliban fleet, and at the center of it all, a pulsing mass of otherworldly consciousness. "This is the hyperseed," Stephen explained, his voice grim. "An entity that seeks to absorb humanity into its collective. The Apex program, our augmentations, it's all part of its plan." Zara shook her head, disbelief etched on her face. "That's impossible. We were created to protect Earth, not—" Stephen interrupted, his eyes blazing with intensity. "Watch." The psionic construct expanded, enveloping them both. Suddenly, they were no longer in the outpost, but floating in the void of space. Planets and stars whizzed by as Stephen's memories unfolded around them. Zara gasped as she witnessed the truth, the alien origins of the Apex program, the Suliban's impending invasion, and the cosmic chess game with humanity as unwitting pawns. As the vision faded, Zara stumbled back, her mind turning. "My God," she whispered, "what do we do?" Stephen's face hardened with tenacity. "We fight. For Earth, for free will, for the future of our species. But I can't do it alone. Will you join me?" Zara hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. "I'm in." Together, they slipped aboard a Suliban scout ship, their combined psionic abilities cloaking them from detection. As they approached the massive invasion fleet, Stephen and Zara linked minds, their powers amplifying each other. They wove intricate patterns in the hyperfield, scrambling communications and navigation systems across the armada. Suliban ships veered off course, colliding with each other in the chaos. On the bridge of the Suliban flagship, Marek snarled in frustration as reports of malfunctions flooded in. His cybernetic implants pulsed with angry red light as he reached out with his own crude psionic abilities, searching for the source of the disruption. "There!" he roared, pinpointing Stephen's unique energy signature. "Intruders!" Stephen felt the brutal hammer blow of Marek's psionic assault. He staggered, nearly losing his concentration. "Zara, maintain the disruption!" he shouted. "I'll handle Marek." Stephen reached deep into the hyperfield, drawing upon its limitless energy. He met Marek's next attack head-on, their minds clashing in a titanic struggle that transcended physical space. The flagship systems went haywire. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks as the two psionic combatants unleashed wave after wave of psychic energy. Marek's raw power was staggering, fueled by rage and cybernetic enhancements. But Stephen's mastery of the hyperfield gave him an edge, allowing him to deflect and redirect Marek's assaults. Just as Stephen began to gain the upper hand, a new presence slammed into his mind. He reeled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected attack. "Stephen Taylor," a woman's voice echoed in his head. "Your resistance is futile." A group of humans materialized on the bridge, their eyes glowing with psionic energy. At their center stood a tall woman with flowing silver hair, Ivara. "The hyperseed offers ascension," Ivara proclaimed, her voice ringing with zealous fervor. "Why do you fight against our destiny?" Stephen gritted his teeth, fighting off psychic assaults from multiple directions. "Our destiny is our own to choose," he shouted back. The bridge erupted into chaos as the three-way battle unfolded. Stephen and Zara found themselves assailed from all sides. Marek's brute force attacks, Ivara's insidious telepathic probes, and the combined might of her apex followers. Stephen deflected a psionic blast from Marek, only to be struck by a mental lance from one of Ivara's acolytes. He stumbled, feeling blood trickle from his nose. Zara screamed in pain as Ivara broke through her defenses, bombarding her with visions of cosmic unity. The Suliban flagship groaned and shuddered, its superstructure warping under the strain of the psionic energies being unleashed within. Crucial systems failed in cascading chain reactions as the titanic struggle raged on. Stephen fought with every ounce of his being, desperately trying to turn the tide. But as the onslaught continued, a chilling realization settled over him. This battle was just the beginning, a microcosm of the war to come. Earth hung in the balance, caught between cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. He reached out to Zara, their minds linking once more. They had to find a way to unite the fractured apex subjects, to show them the truth. It was humanity's only hope of. Stephen's eyes blazed with cosmic energy as he reached deep into the hyperfield. The fabric of reality itself bent to his will, tearing open with a thunderous crack. A swirling vortex of impossible colors erupted into being, its hungry maw devouring everything in its path. Ivara's eyes widened in shock as her followers were yanked off their feet, pulled inexorably towards the singularity. "No!" she screamed, her voice distorted by the warping of space-time. Stephen felt the strain of maintaining the rift, sweat beading on his brow. Zara stood beside him, her own psionic powers reinforcing his efforts. "We can't hold this for long," she shouted over the deafening roar of reality unraveling. Ivara's face contorted with rage and desperation. She lashed out with a final devastating psychic assault. The force of it slammed into Stephen like a tidal wave, threatening to shatter his concentration. But Stephen's newfound mastery of the hyperfield proved an impenetrable shield. As Ivara's attack washed over him, he caught glimpses of her innermost thoughts, flashes of a grand vision, humanity transcending its mortal limits to join a cosmic collective consciousness. For a fraction of a second, Stephen hesitated. Was this truly the path to humanity's ultimate evolution? But the faces of those he'd sworn to protect flashed through his mind. Billions of lives, each with their own hopes, dreams, and right to choose their destiny. "I'm sorry," Stephen whispered. With a surge of will, he collapsed the singularity. The implosion was cataclysmic. Ivara and her followers vanished in a blinding flash of energy that warped the very structure of the dreadnought. Bulkheads buckled and tore as if made of paper. In the chaos that followed, Stephen and Zara turned their combined psionic might against the remaining Suliban forces. Marek bellowed in fury, hurling bolts of raw psychic energy. But against the apex subject's hyperfield manipulation, he might as well have been throwing pebbles at a mountain. A well-placed psionic blast sent Marek crashing to the deck, his cybernetic implants sparking and sputtering. Stephen pinned him with an immobilizing field of energy while Zara disabled the ship's remaining systems. "We need to go now," Zara shouted, gesturing towards a nearby hangar bay. Stephen nodded, dragging the incapacitated Marek along with a thought. They sprinted through collapsing corridors, leaping over sparking debris. With a final burst of psionic energy, they forced open the bay doors and commandeered a sleek Suliban scout ship. As they rocketed away from the doomed dreadnought, Stephen watched through the view screen as the massive vessel imploded, consumed by the aftermath of the hyperfield rift. The shockwave buffeted their small craft, but Zara's expert piloting kept them stable. Once they'd put some distance between themselves and the scattered remnants of the Suliban fleet, Stephen slumped in his seat, physical and mental exhaustion washing over him. "What now?" Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Stephen closed his eyes, reaching out with his expanded consciousness. He could sense the faint echoes of other apex subjects scattered across the vastness of space. "We find the others," he said, "before it's too late." He turned to face Zara, his expression grim yet resolute. "What we just faced, Ivara, the Suliban, it's only the beginning. The real threat is the hyperseed itself. It's been guiding human evolution for millennia, all to serve its own agenda." Zara's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "So our mission is to awaken humanity's true potential," Stephen finished, "to break free from the hyperseed's influence and chart our own course." He stood, moving to the ship's navigation console. As his fingers danced across the controls, plotting a course to the nearest apex signal, Stephen felt the weight of untold billions resting on his shoulders. The fate of human free will itself hung in the balance. "Ready?" he asked Zara, his hand hovering over the hyperdrive initiator. She nodded, a fierce persistence in her eyes. "Let's go save humanity." With a burst of energy, the Suliban craft vanished into hyperspace, carrying Earth's best hope against a threat beyond imagination. The Suliban scout ship dropped out of hyperspace, its sleek hull gleaming in the light of an unfamiliar star. Stephen's fingers danced across the control panel, bringing up a holographic display of the system. "There," Zara said, pointing to a small, rocky moon orbiting a gas giant. "The databanks show apex activity in this sector." Stephen nodded, guiding the ship into a low orbit around the barren satellite. The craft's sensors hummed, scanning the cratered surface below. Suddenly, a blip appeared on the readout. "Got something," Stephen muttered. Wait, that can't be right." He adjusted the sensors, revealing a sprawling underground complex hidden beneath the moon's surface. The outpost was a masterpiece of camouflage, its energy signatures masked by advanced shielding technology. "Impressive," Zara whispered. "If we hadn't known what to look for." Stephen guided the ship to a concealed landing pad, the vessel touching down with barely a whisper. As they exited the craft, the airlock hissed open to reveal a squad of heavily armed soldiers, their weapons trained on the newcomers. At the forefront stood a man with cybernetic implants visible along his temples and jawline. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the intruders. "Identify yourselves," he barked, his voice gravelly and imbued with suspicion. Stephen raised his hand slowly. "I'm Stephen Taylor. This is Zara. We're Apex subjects, like you." The man's lip curled. "Prove it." Stephen closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. The air around him shimmered as he tapped into the hyperfield, bending reality to his will. The soldiers' weapons lifted from their hands, floating in midair. The leader's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition passing over his face. "Stand down," he ordered his men. "I'm Operative Jackson Renner. Welcome to our little slice of hell." As the tension eased, Stephen explained their mission, the hyperseed's true nature, the looming threat to humanity. Jackson listened, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "Shit," he muttered. "And here we thought we were just hiding from Suliban. Come on, there's something you need to see." Jackson led them deeper into the facility, through winding corridors lined with advanced technology. They emerged into a vast chamber dominated by a single cryostasis pod. "This is why we're here," Jackson said, his voice tinged with reverence. "Dr. Helena Vance, the genius behind Project Apex." Stephen approached the pod, studying the woman frozen within. Her face was serene, untroubled by the cosmic war raging around her. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex. Jackson cursed, activating a nearby console. "Suliban Strike Force incoming. They found us." The outpost erupted into chaos. Apex operatives rushed to defensive positions as the first explosions rocked the facility. Stephen and Zara joined the fray, their psionic abilities turning the tide against the Suliban onslaught. In the midst of the battle, Stephen felt a familiar presence. He turned to see Merrick striding through the carnage, cybernetic enhancements glowing with malevolent energy. "The pod!" Stephen shouted to Jackson. "We have to protect Dr. Vance!" They fought their way back to the cryo chamber, only to find the stasis unit sparking and malfunctioning. Stephen's heart sank as he realized the truth. Merrick had sabotaged it from afar, using his crude understanding of hyperfield manipulation. "Her mind is degrading," Zara said, her voice tight with panic. "We're losing her." Jackson's face hardened. "There's only one way," he growled. "We have to transfer her consciousness into me." Before Stephen or Zara could object, Jackson initiated the process. His body convulsed as Dr. Vance's neural patterns overrode his own. Stephen held off Merrick's assault, psionic energies clashing in a spectacular display. As the transfer completed, Jackson's eyes snapped open, but it wasn't Jackson anymore. Dr. Helena Vance, now inhabiting the augmented body of an Apex super soldier, stumbled forward. "Oh, what's happening?" she asked, her voice a strange blend of Jackson's gruff tones and a softer feminine lilt. Stephen had no time to explain. The outpost's failsafes activated, a surge of hyperfield energy building to cataclysmic levels. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing Vance and Zara. They sprinted for the shuttle as the complex imploded behind them, a maelstrom of psionic force obliterating everything, including Merrick and his Suliban forces. As their ship blasted away from the destroyed moon, Stephen felt a tremor in the cosmic fabric of reality. The hyperseed had noticed their defiance, and it was turning its vast, incomprehensible attention towards them. "We need to move fast," Stephen said, plotting a course into uncharted space. "The real war is just beginning." The Suliban scout ship hurtled through the void, its engines straining as Stephen pushed them to their limits. He stood at the helm, fingers dancing across holographic controls as he plotted their course through treacherous asteroid fields and radiation-soaked nebulae. Zara's voice cut through his concentration. "Stephen, we've got a problem." He turned to see her hunched over a sensor display, face illuminated by its eerie glow. "What is it?" I'm picking up strange hyperfield fluctuations. They're getting stronger. Stephen closed his eyes, extending his consciousness into the fabric of reality itself. The moment he did, he recoiled as if struck. Waves of malevolent energy pulsed through the hyperfield, probing, searching. "It's the hyperseed," he said, voice tight. "It's looking for us." Dr. Vance, still adjusting to her new body, stumbled to the main console. "We need to mask our signature somehow. If it finds us—" Her words were cut off as the ship lurched violently. Red warning lights flashed across every display. "Transdimensional wake!" Zara shouted. "It's closing in!" Stephen's hands flew across the controls, initiating a series of random jumps. The stars blurred and shifted as they leapt from system to system, desperately trying to shake their pursuer. Just as it seemed they might be cornered, a burst of static erupted from the communications array. A voice, distorted but unmistakably human, cut through the chaos. "Apex subjects, this is Jacob Ward. I'm transmitting coordinates to a safe harbor. You must come quickly. The fate of humanity depends on it." Stephen hesitated for a split second before punching in the coordinates. The ship shuddered as it tore through space-time, emerging in orbit around a massive ring world. As they approached the research habitat, Stephen's jaw dropped. The structure was a marvel of engineering, its curved surface stretching beyond the horizon. They docked at a hidden port, rushing through airlocks into a cavernous laboratory. A man with graying hair and intense eyes greeted them. "Jacob Ward," he said, extending a hand. "We don't have much time." Over the next hours, Jacob laid out the truth behind the Apex program. Stephen listened, his knees going weak as he absorbed the implications. "So the curators, they've been guiding us all along?" he asked. Jacob nodded. "But the hyperseed is a corruption of their original intent. We have to stop it." He led them deeper into the facility, past humming machinery and glowing energy conduits. They emerged into a vast chamber dominated by a towering apparatus. "This," Jacob said, "is our last hope. A stellar drive capable of unifying the hyperfield frequencies." As they worked to configure the massive device, alarms blared throughout the station. Stephen's blood ran cold as he sensed the approaching psychic storm. "They found us," he said. The air crackled with energy as hyperseed forces tore through dimensional barriers. Stephen, Zara, and Vance formed a defensive line, unleashing their psionic abilities against the onslaught. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist as the battle raged. Stephen deflected bolts of pure thought while Zara created shields of solidified space-time. Vance, tapping into her new body's augmentations, became a whirlwind of hyperkinetic fury. But the enemy was relentless. As Stephen fought, he saw Jacob working frantically at the stellar drive's controls. "It's not enough!" Jacob shouted over the din. "We need more power to achieve resonance lock." Stephen felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. "Keep them back!" he yelled to Zara and Vance. With a final look at his comrades, Stephen sprinted toward the stellar drive. Its focusing chamber pulsed with impossible energies. He took a deep breath, reaching out to touch the swirling vortex of power. Pain unlike anything he'd ever known coursed through him as his physical form began to dissolve. Stephen pushed through the agony, forcing his consciousness to merge with the stellar drive systems. As his body faded away, he felt his mind expanding, encompassing the entirety of the hyperfield. In that transcendent state, Stephen saw the cosmic tapestry of reality laid bare before him. With a thought, he commanded the unified frequencies to pulse outward. A shockwave of pure possibility exploded from the ring world, racing across the universe at infinite speed. Stephen felt the hyperseed's hold shatter, its influence burned away by the light of human potential unleashed. As his consciousness began to fade, Stephen caught a glimpse of humanity's newfound freedom. A species unchained, ready to forge its own destiny among the stars. The shockwave tore through space-time, obliterating the hyperseed forces in a blinding flash of psionic energy. Jacob Ward, Zara, and the Vance incarnate stood transfixed, their faces illuminated by the dying light of Stephen's sacrifice. "He did it," Zara whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "He actually did it." But their victory was short-lived. The air around them began to shimmer and distort, reality itself buckling under the strain of Stephen's resonance overload. Jacob's eyes widened as he watched cracks form in the very fabric of existence. "Something's wrong," he said, frantically working the controls of a nearby console. "The hyperfield collapse. It's destabilizing dimensional boundaries." Before their eyes, the fissures in space-time widened, spewing forth nightmarish abominations. Twisted, malformed shapes crawled from the breaches. Once human and Suliban forms warped beyond recognition. Their flesh pulsed with cancerous growths, limbs bent at impossible angles, faces frozen in silent screams. Zara recoiled in horror as one of the creatures lurched towards her, its body a writhing mass of tentacles and exposed muscle. She lashed out with her psionic abilities, but the thing absorbed the energy, growing larger and more grotesque. "It's feeding on our powers," she shouted, backing away. Dr. Vance's eyes darted back and forth, her augmented mind racing to process the unfolding catastrophe. "The unified frequencies," she said, her voice a blend of awe and terror. "They've created a self-replicating psionic virus. It's consuming everything it touches, reshaping reality itself." As if to emphasize her point, the floor beneath them began to warp and bubble, solid matter twisting into impossible shapes. The air filled with discordant whispers, the psychic screams of countless minds being devoured and assimilated. Jacob grabbed Vance's arm, pulling her towards a reinforced doorway. "We need to get to the stellar drive chamber. It's our only chance." They ran through corridors, rapidly decaying into chaos, fighting off waves of infected drones. Once human scientists and Suliban warriors, now fused into grotesque hybrids, lurched at them with frenzied hunger. Zara cleared a path with bursts of telekinetic force, while Jacob used his own apex abilities to erect temporary psychic barriers. They reached the stellar drive control nexus, sealing the doors behind them. Vance immediately connected herself to the system cores, her consciousness expanding into the vast network of quantum computers. "I can create a pocket dimension," she said, her voice distorted by the direct neural interface. "A realm beyond the virus's influence. But the calculations? They're beyond anything we've ever attempted." Jacob and Zara took up defensive positions as the reinforced doors began to buckle under the assault of the infected horde. "Do it!" Jacob shouted. "We'll buy you time!" As Vance's mind raced through impossible equations, Jacob and Zara fought with desperate fury. But for every abomination they struck down, two more took its place. The air grew thick with reality warping energies, each breath burning in their lungs. Suddenly the doors exploded inward. A tidal wave of corrupted flesh surged into the chamber. Jacob threw himself into its path, using his body as a living shield. "Zara, go!" he screamed as tendrils of infected matter tore into his flesh. "Get to Vance!" Zara watched in horror as Jacob was consumed, his final thoughts brushing against her mind. A bittersweet farewell tinged with love and regret. Tears streaming down her face, she fought her way to Vance's side. "It's ready," Vance shouted, her eyes glowing with unearthly light. A pinprick of absolute darkness appeared in the center of the chamber, rapidly expanding into a swirling vortex. "But only one of us can go through. The others must stay to close the breach." Without hesitation, Vance's consciousness surged into Zara's mind, merging their beings into a single transcendent entity. "Go!" Vance, Zara screamed with one voice. "Carry our legacy forward!" Zara plunged into the wormhole just as it began to collapse. Reality twisted and bent around her, incomprehensible geometries assaulting her senses. She felt herself stretched across infinite dimensions, her very essence rewritten by laws of physics beyond human comprehension. When the vertigo finally subsided, Zara found herself floating in a realm of impossible beauty and mind-bending complexity. Fractals of pure energy danced around her, each one containing entire universes. The merged consciousness of Zara and Vance struggled to process the sheer scope of this higher plane of existence. But even as wonder filled her, Zara felt the weight of unimaginable loss. She reached out with her expanded senses, searching for any trace of the reality she'd left behind. All she found was entropy and decay, the multiverse she once called home crumbling under the relentless assault of the psionic plague. Zara Vance drifted in this alien cosmos, the last ember of humanity's potential floating in an ocean of infinite possibility. The path ahead was utterly unknown, fraught with dangers beyond imagining. But in this moment of transdimensional awakening, one truth became crystal clear. The future of the human race now rested solely in her hands.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.